Somewhere nestled in the rolling hills of northeastern Washington state, only a stone's throw from Lake Roosevelt, is a small farm that is also a school. There, a group of food experts and students experience a unique brand of homespun culinary education within a small farm atmosphere.
One of the areas that's really growing, there's a really increased awareness in sustainable agriculture and organics, and knowing where your food comes from, knowing how the farmers that raise your food.
As an educator, I feel like I have an obligation to confront the issues that we're dealing with in the industry and try to put those issues in front of the students. And one of the things is supporting and really getting involved in local, regional, sustainable food.
So exposure is certainly something that I think we do a really wonderful job of as cooking professionals, and that we expose people to things that they certainly would probably not always cook at home, nor that they've heard of before.
We've connected with one of the head chef for a company who is really focused on sustainable agriculture and buying produce direct from the farmer, and we're going to be one of their vendors, and I'm very grateful for that. That's something that would have never happened had we not met him through the Quill-Saskett School.
So I've heard some from students who graduate out of this program, and it's like a transforming experience. I mean, it's so amazing to watch these kids go back to Seattle or Portland or Spokane and see the impact it has on their own habits, on how they think about the restaurant, how they think about bringing in new and fresh foods and creating those menus. Phenomenal.
The writings of Alice Waters from Chez Panisse Restaurant has greatly influenced the food industry. She polished the idea of using locally grown organic foods, and in so doing, helped promote the relationship between the farmer and the chef. Chefs from coast to coast have picked up the trend and created a demand for locally grown products. The result is a new vitality for small acreage farms growing produce for the restaurant market, as well as increasing market share among consumers. Farmers markets have gained popularity in many neighborhoods. National organizations such as Chefs Collaborative and Slow Foods are educating chefs, farmers, and consumers on issues and ideas promoting the farm-chef connection.
I take responsibility by educating myself, by asking questions of my purveyors, by seeking out my farmer, by being a member of organizations like Chefs Collaborative. I'm sitting on the WSDA Small Farm Advisory Board, learning what issues the farmer has getting the food to my door and how can I make that work.
The book, Bitter Harvest, written by Chef Ann Cooper, tells of the environmental impact of the kitchen and the food choices chefs are making, stepping up the importance for trained professionals to have a better understanding of environmental and farming terminology. Aware of this need, Rick and Laura Lee Misterly initiated a program on their farm to teach these concepts. They started the Quill-Saskett Farm School of the Domestic Arts with a hands-on training program called Farm Culinary 101, The Sustainable Kitchen. The Quill-Saskett Farm offers food professionals and culinary students a unique opportunity to experience the farm-to-table connection firsthand. Rick and Laura Lee Misterly moved to this 36-acre property in the summer of 1981. In those early years, they built a home, developed the gardens, and started the farmstead orchard of fruit and nut trees. Livestock has always been a part of the farm plan, and shortly after purchasing the property, Rick and Laura Lee bought a milking alpine doe named Taffy. By the spring of 1987, the farm was well enough established that the Misterlys applied for and received a license from the Washington State Department of Agriculture to manufacture and sell farmstead cheese. Quillisasket Cheese Company was ready for business. Around this time, the philosophy of using local, seasonal ingredients was taking off. Chefs were looking for something a little different and were featuring regional products on their menus. Quillisasket Farmstead cheese became a popular menu addition that helped define a regional feel to any restaurant. During week-long retreats, participants milk goats, make cheese, help care for farm animals, transplant vegetables, and harvest produce from the gardens. Presentations about honeybees, grass-finished meats, composting, organic labeling standards, genetically modified foods, and globalization, plus visits to neighboring farms are all part of the experience as students gain an understanding of the implications of buying locally and seasonally.
We teach them hopefully to cook within the seasons. We're looking for creative solutions. If we don't have something available locally, we look for a way to either mock a flavor or just change it enough that it makes it Quillisaskets. It makes it from here. So getting them to learn to be creative in that regard. When tomatoes are ripe off the vine, what that tastes like. I think it's really urgent for them to take responsibility for their food system. They need to realize that their fates, their profession is tied to it. If they don't take responsibility for their role in it, they won't have access to 3,000 varieties of tomatoes, and they won't have access to flavor.
So what we're really trying to do is get away from the idea that food comes in a package. We want people to be able to taste the realities of food and make connections between the food they eat and how it's grown.
Mornings start off bright and early at 5:30 a.m. with milking and morning chores, followed by breakfast and a morning meeting about the upcoming day's activities. Each day, students will work with a chef to prepare lunch and dinner using only ingredients from the garden and products from local farms. Dinner is a culmination of the day's work, a time to feast on the bounty of the farm, reflect on the experiences of the day, and build community around the table. A focal point for the week is discovering ways to incorporate local and seasonal foods into the menu. Developing the menu is a welcome challenge. The garden is a supermarket of inspiration, offering fresh flavors for the meals.
You just don't run out to the grocery store, that you use what is running around and what's growing in the garden. Also developing a real sense of value for food.
There's nothing tastier than fresh vegetables that you can harvest yourself, and I didn't know how to do that before I went to the farm.
I think from a cooking style, when you've had a chance to experience ingredients that are at such a peak and have such intense flavor, stuff that's come right out of the ground, you want to recreate that.
There's a distinct quality factor here, and they're looking for high quality, and it is our belief that high quality food is local food, fresh food.
Quality is a determining factor for ingredient selection. It's not just chefs that understand this. Bakers are also taking an active role in monitoring the quality of their ingredients by building relationships with farmers.
There's a lot of bakers that are talking with the farmers about the flour that they're producing, and we're wanting this certain quality of flour, talking about the protein content, how it's grown, and the response for its fermentation. I feel as a baker, the quality of the organic flour is really excellent. The end result, the flavor of the bread, and the response for its fermentation is very high.
Since the Quillisasket farm believes cheese is one of the most delightful of ingredients, one of the highlights of the school is cheese making. Everyone arrives curious about the mystery of how cheese is made. The students spend one morning in the cheese kitchen learning how to make 4 different types of cheese: mozzarella, ricotta, soft cream cheese, and a firm aged farmhouse cheese. During the week, the cheese will be incorporated into recipes and menus. Some examples are European-style cheesecakes, ricotta noce, or pizza baked in wood-fired ovens.
The retreat really helped simplify things and gave us great instruction of how to do things. Cheese making, for example, an obvious one, but Laura Lee made it really simple and gave us great instruction. And the whole science and the freshness and everything behind that process is something that can be so valuable to our students.
Each day ends as a social event. Good company, good food, and good conversation. The participants of the program often discuss the concepts they've learned at the farm. For instance, a key concept to the Farm to Table education program is sustainability. Sustainability is looking at the bigger picture of how humans coexist with a natural order on Earth, and then try to create lifestyles that enhance the environment for future generations. Cooking with fresh produce generates a lot of kitchen waste, and composting is a way to complete the cycle and close the farm-to-table loop by turning the unused bits into fertilizer. Not only does composting provide a method for reducing the amount of waste for disposal, it also converts into nutrients useful for gardens or landscape plants.
You know, we talk about a food system a lot here, and a sustainable food system, and what that means and what the word sustainable even means. But when you talk about a food system, you know that it involves, the farmer that worked really hard to plant the seed and work the soil and make this beautiful produce, all the way through the marketing and how it gets to us, and then the nourishment. And so I feel like what I learned the most was just that connection and that cycle. As a consumer and as a cook and as a part of a community, I have to kind of pay attention to that whole cycle.
Water conservation is vital in farm maintenance. Participants learn techniques to conserve water usage, from drip irrigation and mulches in the garden to reducing wasteful water consumption in the kitchen.
We want them to leave with a sense of just the interconnectedness of everything, the interconnectedness of what happens on the farm and how that gets into the stores or on their plate.
Conserving food is also a sustainable practice. A way to increase the availability of local products for off-season usage is making preserves by canning, freezing, pickling, and dehydration.
I want to involve my staff with even more preserving. I'm talking to my pastry chef right now, Betsy Buford, and for example, the produce that we're getting from Cliffside Orchards, the organic stuff, she's using the peaches or using the apples. Currently, she makes jams and we end up freezing and we end up using them next week. But she wants to get involved with actually jarring things so that we can have great peach jam in the wintertime.
Livestock management is an important function on the farm, supplying milk for cheese, fertility for the soil, and meat for the table. Students learn about different livestock management practices and how it relates to their work in the kitchen.
Make a presentation to each of the sessions on grass-fed and grass-finished meats and poultry. I have lunch with them and we talk about their backgrounds and where they're from, and then after lunch I make a presentation about alternative production systems for animals and poultry in particular, and systems different than the standard concentrated confinement approach to agriculture.
So this is our chicken tractor, and we move it twice a day, and the chickens scratch up at the soil and kind of fertilize between the grapes and eat down all of the weeds, and they then get all of the nourishment of all the weeds that are growing, so it's a pretty nice cycle.
In fact, students participate in the entire procedure of livestock processing, including butchering. Chefs in the industry today don't often have the opportunity to fabricate a whole animal. Yet working with local livestock producers may necessitate utilizing whole carcasses and learning about preparing lesser cuts of meat.
A long, long time ago, I read about the Quillisasket Farm School, and this is really odd, but it included butchering, and I felt there was a degree of seriousness about the school. It wasn't just a wimp school or that it would be about real farming, and I was just anxious to be a part of that.
And oddly enough, I think one of my favorite moments, which was also one of the more conflicted ones, was the whole chicken butchering process. It made the connection so real to stand there and like watch the animal go from running around to the dinner table in the process of a day.
An eye-opening in many ways, from, you know, having a lamb to break down and gut and fabricate and then see it being used in so many different ways, from making sausages to confying it, to just doing so many wonderful things with it, and it was just great to see the progression.
Obviously, the school emphasizes the importance of the small farm and the role it plays in acquiring high-quality ingredients. Participants are encouraged to purchase locally grown organic produce as their first choice, locally raised as their second selection, and certified organic as the third alternative. Upon returning home, they begin taking basic steps like shopping at farmers markets and building relationships with farms. As informed consumers, they take control of the role they play in the way their food is grown.
I buy my produce at farmers markets, especially in the summertime. It's just a nice way to share with my clients the tastiest food. I think any culinarian who is serious about flavor has to realize that it can only come from the local markets.
I came back overwhelmingly inspired about, you know, what I could do, and so right now I've really started to just build those relationships, and that's really what it comes down to, is the farmers really want to work with the chefs, and the chefs, most of us really want to work with the farmers. I have a commitment to the local farmer in Eastern Washington, and I want the farmers to survive.
By supporting local farms, consumers are investing in healthier communities and a healthier environment.
I've vowed to just extend myself as much as I possibly can in buying local from farmers. In fact, on the farm retreat, while I was at Cliffside Orchards, so I started a relationship with him and started purchasing right away, and they're just incredible. When I put them out on our display at Bon Appetit, people are just like, where did you get these peaches or these nectarines? And just like, from an organic local farmer, and then I tell them about it.
So I would like our local citizens to understand the connection between what's on their table and the land that it grows on. I'd like to see our local citizens have healthy diets, nutritional diets, and this way we'll improve the economies of our farm system, our family farms, and have the connections between our consumers and our farmers. So what we're really trying to do for the consumer is put a face on the farm.
Part of the education for the student involves meeting with and talking to farmers in the rural community. They learn of some of the struggles that producers encounter and the challenge of bringing fresh produce to the marketplace. The students often comment on how farmers know so much about so many things, like insect monitoring, the soil, the climate, and the physiology of the plants.
Well, I think the first impression I had was how much hard work is involved for small farms, producers. I think the next thing is, for a successful, sustainable small farm operation, the need to understand a complex array of disciplines: biology, ecology, soils, animal husbandry, government regulations, interpersonal relations, and so forth.
Meeting local neighbors who are just as enthusiastic about what they do and passionate about what they do. It's always nice to see that, and see that people are doing well and enjoying what they are doing in life.
What I love about the students coming is that it's an educational experience in that they get to see, you know, what we go through and what we do and how we do it, and where we live, and they can pass that information on to other people.
The Quillisasket Farm School of Domestic Arts is impacting the culinary industry by influencing future chefs. Apparently, sharing this educational experience has had a similar effect on agricultural professionals. Even extension faculty and other agricultural professionals seek a better understanding of the day-to-day issues facing small farms as they incorporate sustainable farming methods while trying to move their products from their fields to the market. Admittedly, they learned a lot at the Quillisasket Farm.
I work for a sustainable agriculture center at WSU, but being at Quillisasket Farm was being the closest to sustainable that I've ever seen in my life. It was an example of really understanding the inputs, what's coming onto the farm, and the outputs. Because we had compressed that distance between the farm and the table, it was easier for us to see what's coming into this farm to make this possible, and then what does the farm offer to the community. And we also covered gratitude and how much we need to be thankful to our farmers for the work that they do.
I think it renewed my appreciation for whole foods, local foods, seasonal foods, so that I can more enthusiastically portray that to the clientele I work with. So hopefully we'll be able to support the small family farmer that way.
Again, I think it's the integration of the small farm production and the farmers with the culinary and gastronomical arts, and that the food that is produced is prepared in a fabulous place. And that's an example.
Well, it really helped me develop an appreciation for the many challenges that farmers face, whether it's weather or crops or pests or changing markets and changing consumer desires. And I came to see that farmers had to be really creative and innovative and flexible in order to make the best use of their land in order to make ends meet. So that was really cool.
Well, I think it was hard to describe the experience adequately, and that's part of the beauty of Quillisasket, is that you really have to go there and experience farm life and put that food on the table yourself and be involved in that process to understand what it's all about.
While at the farm, participants build a network of peers by working together, sharing stories, and enjoying time around the dinner table.
I think a pretty amazing thing that happens on the farm is the community that builds and how it transforms. I think we're missing that community so much now, and I think that that's something that you then come home with, is you want to have those connections, and food is the best way to do that, is to bring people around the table.
And also I think that the friendships that were formed on the farm, sitting around the fantastic meals we would create, working with people that I hadn't worked with before but who have shared a common bond, a common interest with me, that was just so empowering and life-giving.
Chefs are in the cooking business because they have a lot of love for creating delicious meals, but the hectic daily restaurant routine can put a damper on their enthusiasm. Time on the farm helps them reconnect with their passions.
It really reconnects them with their love of food, I think. Oftentimes, in the restaurant, there's it's frenetic paced. There's a definite hierarchy, and so sometimes you lose that connection, that soulful connection to the earth, and this really brings it full circle.
Society is searching for solutions to problems facing the world. People are looking for more environmentally friendly lifestyles and how individuals can make a difference.
One of the most important things that I got out of it is that we live in a world that's just so busy. And what the farm did was kind of just gave me a peace and a sense of mind that I don't need to have all the answers right now, that I can just relax, and just buy great food and think about the purchases that I make personally, that I myself can make a difference.
It certainly grounded my knowledge level and also really allowed me to develop that peer group and personal connections to continue my own education and extend that to the people, both public and professional, that I am fortunate to have an impact on with food choices.
But I talk about the farm, and I try to use the farm as a lot of inspirational experiences to illustrate to my students sort of what can be done out there and how, you know, how a few people can change the world, and how you have to work at the local level, and you have to work at the personal level, because there's not that much I can do on the global level, but I can affect what happens around me, and hopefully, you know, my talking about what's important to me and what the farm does, hopefully that inspires my students, and there's a ripple effect that goes out.
As culinarians, they are excited to find solutions through the preparation and purchasing practices of their kitchens.
In the culinary field, I think it's an invaluable experience to go to a place where the food comes from and really learn how to connect with the people in your community who are making a product that you should buy for so many reasons. I mean, you know, for quality and environmentally and politically and for all these great reasons.
At home, they build connections by joining organizations such as the Chefs Collaborative.
Well, you know, the farm really inspired me to, I had an interest and I had some involvement, but the farm got me involved in Forks much more closely in Chefs Collaborative.
I got a membership with the Chefs Collaborative, which I hadn't been a member of before. Now, we don't have a Chefs Collaborative chapter here in Eastern Washington to date, and maybe we'll change that in time to come.
Culinary instructors are bringing the practice of sustainability into the classroom.
I was about 50% organic before the farm, and now I'm about 95% organic, using organic flour. I feel that's important because of the things I learned out at the farm, and just with genetically modified foods and sustainability, and, you know, sort of making those choices for being more environmentally aware.
After leaving the farm, the farm retreat, I decided that some of these things that seemed so overwhelming were really easy to bring back to my curriculum. Where the industry is going and what I'm seeing out there right now is this farm to table, fork to table, whatever you want to call it. There's this movement, slow food, the whole thing, there's this movement, and it's growing and growing and growing.
I guess I want them to leave feeling that they have power. They have power to make change, and that, you know, they can make a positive change.
Everyone leaves the farm feeling hopeful that they can make changes. Slowly, step by step, they are making a positive impact through their own work.